Milky Way. Milky Way. The rancher sat on the edge of the wooden chair. The fire in the stove hissed weakly, its glow barely warming the wide and empty room. A hungry cry echoed from the cradle, sharp and piercing, cutting through the silence like a knife. The man's rough hands trembled as he tried to soothe the baby, but the child's tiny face turned red with desperation. Milk was gone. The last jar of goat's milk stood empty on the counter, its glass cold to the touch. The wind pressed hard against the rattling windows, carrying with it the dry scent of dust and loneliness. The rancher's throat tightened as he looked down at his son, whose lips searched in vain. The memory of his wife's laughter filled his ears, haunting and cruel in the heavy silence. Her absence felt like a wound that never closed. The baby's cry grew louder, raw with hunger, and the man buried his face in his hands. Then came a sound. A knock. Firm. Unexpected. His body stiffened. The chair creaked as he rose, heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. The door groaned open, and in the frame stood a woman, her face shadowed by the lantern light behind her. Her cheeks were flushed, her chest rising and falling with heavy breath. The smell of fresh hay clung to her clothes, mixing with the faint sweetness of milk. Her eyes met his, steady, unblinking. And then he saw. Her blouse stretched tight across her chest, damp with milk that had leaked through. She whispered with urgency, voice trembling but resolute. "Give me the child." The baby wailed louder, as if sensing what waited. The man's stomach knotted, torn between disbelief and desperate need. The storm outside pressed harder, the shutters banging like restless hands against the wood. Her presence filled the room, unsettling, almost unreal. The scent of milk grew stronger. The rancher's breath caught, as he realized what she had come to offer. "Would you like me to continue the next section, building even more suspense until the shocking climax?" "You said." His hands hovered above the cradle, unsure, heavy, reluctant to let go. The baby's screams tore through the air, each cry sharper than the last, demanding an answer. The woman stepped closer, her boots thudding on the wooden floor, the sound deliberate and heavy. Her gaze did not falter, unyielding, almost commanding. The fire crackled weakly, throwing shadows across her face, making her expression unreadable. The rancher felt the sweat bead along his brow, though the room was cold. His mouth went dry, the taste of dust and grief thick on his tongue. The child's fists clenched and unclenched, trembling with hunger, his cries reaching a breaking point. The woman's hand stretched out, fingers pale, nails short, trembling slightly as if her strength fought against fear. "Now," she said, her voice firm, cutting through the chaos like a blade. The man lifted the baby, his arms stiff, his chest rising in shallow breaths. The baby's tiny body quivered against him, the warmth fragile, fleeting. He stepped toward her, each pace like sinking deeper into unfamiliar ground. The scent of milk flooded stronger, invading his senses, both comforting and unsettling. Her blouse clung damp against her, the fabric darker in patches that pulsed with life. The rancher's hand shook as he held out the child. Her arms closed around the infant with surprising certainty, as though she had been waiting for this moment. The baby turned instinctively, mouth searching, desperate, needy. The rancher's heart thundered, a mix of relief and dread tangling inside him. Her breath quickened as she looked down, her body ready to answer the child's cry. Then she lifted her gaze back to him, her eyes glinting with something he could not name. "Would you like me to push the next part into the truly shocking and unsettling climax with sensory intensity?" The woman lowered herself into the chair by the fire, the wood groaning under her weight. The baby rooted against her chest, his cries softening into urgent whimpers. She pulled at the damp fabric, the sound of tearing thread sharp in the quiet room. Her skin glowed pale in the flicker of firelight, warm and alive where his wife's had been cold and buried. The child latched, a tiny gasp escaping his lips, followed by the steady rhythm of swallowing. The room filled with a new sound, wet and primal, both soothing and deeply unsettling. The rancher stood frozen, his fists tight at his sides, unsure if he had saved his son or surrendered him. The woman's face softened as she cradled the infant, but her eyes never left the man. They glimmered with something unreadable, something between hunger and triumph. The storm outside beat harder against the walls, as if the world itself wanted to enter. The fire popped, sending sparks upward, their light flashing across her sharp cheekbones. The rancher's chest tightened, every breath shallow, the air thick with milk and smoke. The baby suckled greedily, unaware of the strange tension that crackled between the two adults. And then she spoke again, her voice low, steady, carrying a weight that made his stomach churn. "He is mine now. Would you like me to continue into the next unsettling twist, where the rancher realizes the truth about who she really is?" Alone on his ranch, a grieving father faces the impossible. His baby cries, starving, and then, she appears. A stranger? Or something far darker? What happens next will shock him, and you, beyond belief. Will he save his child, or will the hunger claim them both? Watch closely, because no one survives this night unchanged. The woman lowered herself into the chair by the fire, the wood groaning under her weight. The baby rooted against her chest, his cries softening into urgent whimpers. She pulled at the damp fabric, the sound of tearing thread sharp in the quiet room. Her skin glowed pale in the flicker of firelight, warm and alive where his wife's had been cold and buried. The child latched, a tiny gasp escaping his lips, followed by the steady rhythm of swallowing. The room filled with a new sound, wet and primal, both soothing and deeply unsettling. The rancher stood frozen, his fists tight at his sides, unsure if he had saved his son or surrendered him. The woman's face softened as she cradled the infant, but her eyes never left the man. They glimmered with something unreadable, something between hunger and triumph. The storm outside beat harder against the walls, as if the world itself wanted to enter. The fire popped, sending sparks upward, their light flashing across her sharp cheekbones. The rancher's chest tightened, every breath shallow, the air thick with milk and smoke. The baby suckled greedily, unaware of the strange tension that crackled between the two adults. And then she spoke again, her voice low, steady, carrying a weight that made his stomach churn. "He is mine now. Would you like me to continue into the next unsettling twist, where the rancher realizes the truth about who she really is?" The words hung in the air like a noose, tightening with every second of silence. The rancher's jaw clenched, the muscles in his face twitching as he tried to speak, but no sound came. The woman rocked the child slowly, her movements calm, deliberate, as if she had always belonged in that chair. Her eyes gleamed in the firelight, catching every flicker, every shadow, as though they carried their own flame. "He is mine now," she repeated, firmer, her tone like iron. The rancher's heart pounded against his ribs, a drumbeat of fear and confusion. His wife's grave flashed in his mind, the mound of earth still fresh under the cottonwood tree. He remembered the silence of her last breath, the stillness that had filled the room when she was gone. And now this woman sat before him, full, alive, feeding his son as though nature itself had appointed her. The baby's tiny fingers clutched at her, pulling closer, claiming her with every greedy swallow. The rancher stepped forward, the floorboards creaking under his boots, but her stare froze him in place. There was no plea in her gaze. There was no kindness either. Only possession. The wind screamed against the shutters, rattling the house like an angry hand. The rancher's throat burned as he finally forced out words, rough and broken. "Who are you?" Her lips curved into the faintest smile, not of warmth, but of certainty. "I am what she left behind." Would you like me to unravel the mystery of her identity in the next part, making it even more eerie and shocking? The rancher felt his blood run cold. Her words slithered into his mind, twisting, settling deep like roots he could not pull free. The fire snapped, sending a spray of sparks that danced across the floor before dying in silence. The woman's smile did not waver, but her eyes darkened, as if shadows moved behind them. The baby drank greedily, unaware of the storm that had risen inside the room. The rancher's breath rasped in his chest, each inhale sharp and painful, each exhale heavy with dread. "What do you mean?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Her hand stroked the child's head slowly, tenderly, yet her tone was merciless. "She left me here, not in flesh, but in need. And need always finds its way back." The wind howled, battering the house, making the lantern swing on its hook, casting wild shadows that danced like spirits on the walls. The rancher took a step back, his boots scraping against the floorboards, but his eyes stayed locked on hers. The air smelled thick with milk and smoke, but beneath it lurked another scent, faint, metallic, ancient. The woman leaned forward, her face close to the child's, her hair falling like a curtain that hid them both. When she looked up again, her voice trembled with something between grief and triumph. "You buried her body, but you never buried her hunger." The rancher's knees weakened, his hands trembling as the weight of her words sank deep. And in the silence that followed, the baby stopped crying. He drank with peace. Too much peace. His tiny eyelids fluttered as if sleep had claimed him too quickly, unnaturally. The woman's smile widened, her breast still pressed to the child. Her whisper cut through the crackling fire. "And now, he will never leave me." Would you like me to carry this forward into the full shocking climax, where the rancher makes a desperate move? The rancher's mind raced, each thought sharper than the last, slicing through the haze of fear. He stumbled toward the chair, hands shaking, every step a battle against the weight of dread pressing on his chest. The woman's eyes followed him, unblinking, a predator's calm in the flickering firelight. The baby stirred but did not cry, his small body oddly still, almost heavy in her arms. The air was thick, tasting of iron and milk, suffocating in its intensity. "You cannot keep him," the rancher said, voice rough, cracking under the strain of terror. She tilted her head, hair brushing against the baby's face, eyes gleaming with something dark and patient. "He will stay because he needs me. Hunger calls louder than fear." The man's hands closed into fists, knuckles white. Every instinct screamed to pull the child from her, to fight for what remained of his broken family. The floor creaked under his weight, the fire flickered violently, shadows twisting like fingers reaching for him. Her lips curved in a slow, deliberate smile, and the baby nuzzled closer, content in a way that made his father's stomach churn. "You think you understand," she whispered, voice soft, almost intimate, "but you only see the world as it was. I am what she left behind, what she always wanted to protect." The rancher's heart hammered. He realized the truth in a horrifying instant. This was not just a woman. This was a force. A living embodiment of hunger, grief, and need. The baby's eyes met his, wide and shining, an eerie reflection of his own desperation. The rancher's mind froze, torn between instinct and disbelief, and the room seemed to close around him. The fire hissed, smoke curling, the shadows now alive, stretching toward him. Her whisper cut the air again, closer now, almost brushing his ear. "You cannot take him from me. Not now. Not ever." The rancher's chest heaved, a last surge of resolve flashing across his fear-stricken eyes. He lunged forward. "Would you like me to write the intense final confrontation and shocking resolution next?" The rancher's arms shot forward, desperate and wild, heart pounding like a hammer against his ribs. The woman's eyes widened for the first time, just a flicker, but it was enough. The baby's tiny body slipped in his grasp, squirming instinctively toward her. Her hand shot out with unnatural speed, fingers curling around the child as if the world itself obeyed her.